from within the center of existence called the Lord. So it is both the consciousness of the Lord and the consciousness of the disciple. And in course of time, the disciple consciousness gets absorbed in the Lord consciousness. And what remains is consciousness or Lord or what we experience as light. This is what happens by following the process. This is one benefit which you will directly know. And a second benefit he describes is removing of the obstacles. The obstacles on your way will be automatically removed. You need not have the trouble of making your path clear. Generally, we think that spiritual training involves many obstacles. For example, financial and social, and about health, and about the acceptance of other family members. Such are the practical obstacles we meet. And how to remove these obstacles? How to get on in the society and at the same time get on with the yoga practice. Because we are expected to take our 24 hours as our experimental time in yoga. It is not enough if we devote half an hour or 1 hour or 2 hours for meditation. Then how to fit in our vacation hours, hours of domestic duties, and our weekend holidays, all these things, how to fit in with the yoga practice. Such are the obstacles we mentally meet. By starting this procedure, the way of uttering Om and listening to it, the obstacles are removed. You need not try to remove them. You can ask how. Everything will be gradually rearranged in your life. And the truth of it is, obstacles exist in our mind and not outside. What exists outside is persons and things. And there are no items called obstacles outside. Obstacles exist in our mind as our impressions upon others and our feeling of obligation to others, our suspicions, our jealousies, and our misunderstandings of people and things. When these things are gradually removed from our mind, when the obstacle complex is removed from our mind, actually there is no obstacle at all. Whether you are driving your car or talking to your wife, or whether you are working in the office, you are tackling with the same Lord. Because your reaction to the environment will be neutralized. You are not society conditioned. You are alone. Even in the midst of 1,000 people, you are alone. That is what is called the holy loneliness in the scriptures. Holy loneliness never means going away into the caves and temples. It means that you alone exist in the presence of 1,000 people. Because you come to know that only one exists in everyone. Not as a theory, but as an experience. These two effects will be immediately felt when you practice this. First is direct experience of the light. The second is removal of the obstacles. When obstacle consciousness is removed from the mind, there is no obstacle. When somebody is sick in the house, you will serve the person, but you know you are serving the Lord. While you are doing some work in the office, You know that the work is useful for many people and you are serving the Lord. When you are a professor in an institution, you know that every student is a Lord in himself and you are helping the students to know the Lord. Because whatever lesson you may teach to your student will be more useful not only for their examinations, but also each sentence will give a touch to the student, which leaves a seed of Lord consciousness, which will be germinated in time. These are the two benefits you derive first when you start this. And then he speaks of some centers in you, centers of different expressions and how to manage with them. I will give only a few examples. You have a feeling of sympathy in you, how to manage with it. Another example, you have pity in you, pleasure, and sometimes negative traits also. Indifference. We have hundreds of such things in our personality. How to manage with them. When we meet other people with these complexes, is not reaction compulsory? Then how to suspend the reaction? He teaches us how to eliminate the reaction in spite of the existence of these traits in us. You should only know how to make the proper connections of electricity. If we make a wrong connection, sometimes there is no effect. Sometimes there may be an explosion. That is what we call a quarrel. Sometimes the filaments go burnt. That is what we call jealousy. Sometimes the fuse of the whole house will go away. That is what we call total destruction of a situation. That is what we call total destruction of a situation. But if you know how to connect these plug points to the pins, you will have only light and TV and radio, everything useful. And he gives the examples of the connections. If you find a person living very happily, you should know with which of your traits you should connect it. Suppose you connect this with your indifference, it creates jealousy. If someone is very happy, if you find it necessary to show indifferent attitude towards him, the result is jealousy in you. But if you link up your sympathy for him, it is a correct connection. Whenever you find anyone happy, try to feel happy because he is happy. So try to show sympathy or a sympathetic expression whenever you find someone succeeding in being happy. Another person who is sorrowful, if you make a wrong correction of pleasure to sorrow, you feel pleasure because he is sorrowful. That is what is called enmity. When an enemy is having bad days, generally we feel that's good, he should be punished like that. That is called wrong connection. But if you connect your pity to the sorrowful state of that person, then it is right connection. Immediately you will be moved to do something positive for him and try to make him less sorrowful and more pleasant, and try to remove his sorrow as far as you can do. And also, if you find a person who is virtuous, that is well behaving, if you connect it with your indifference, that shows that you are not ready to learn anything from the virtuous. So, connect your pleasure center with that person. Whenever you find good behavior and virtues in others, make them pleasurable to you. Feel very much pleased with the good behavior of others. Automatically your centers are purified. And last example is the weaknesses in others, that is the vices in others, the bad behavior in others. What happens if you connect your pleasure with it? That means you feel happy whenever a fellow has some weaknesses in him. I feel very happy, I have found some faults in you. And tomorrow I am very much pleased to talk about your faults with this gentleman, and discussing and criticizing you about you with this person. That is criticizing a person in his absence, in the presence of others. This is something which is very difficult to avoid, especially in Belgium. Every nation has its own weaknesses. Our Indians have their own weaknesses. Similarly, Belgium has its own weaknesses. It is highly difficult not to criticize others in their absence. But you connect it with the center of your indifference. That is called the right connection. Indifference is not taking notice of something. If there is bad behavior in some person, leave it to him and don't take notice of it, unless he asks you for advice or help, or unless he invites you to comment about it with him. Like this, you can make a list of the psychological complexes you have in you and have the proper plug points to plug correctly, so that the current flows properly and produces light and wisdom and happiness. And let there be no explosions and no burning of the filaments and no burning of the fuse. This is one advice he gives. And then he goes to the main item of the practice. This is what he calls purview of the yoga science. Hereafter, the second chapter begins, what Patanjali calls the action of yoga. What we have to do. Start with doing something prescribed. The first thing to do is, in Sanskrit he calls it tapas. That means one-pointedness of the whole life. Make your life purposive of your practice. Have your main aim only your practice. Don't deceive yourself by believing that by practicing yoga or spiritualism you will get some benefits. The very benefit is the ease and happiness you experience, and the path itself is the goal. And if you believe that there is something beneficial out of it, better you can stop it, because you will be utterly disappointed after some time. For example, some people begin to practice yoga for what they call powers. They are deceiving themselves, because God is not a fool to confer powers for certain practices. There is a purpose for creation, that is happiness. And the purpose of yoga practice is happy living to others and to yourself. And except the science of spiritualism, there is nothing in this world that can bring happiness to you and others. And if people believe that their luck will increase with the practice of yoga, it is false, because the very idea of luck is foolish, because everything depends upon how we do things and how we think and our motives in doing. It is thoroughly scientific and materialistic understanding which makes you a real spiritualist. Unless you are a thorough materialist, you cannot be a true spiritualist. If you have something imaginative in your mind, you will suffer from self-mystification for some time and self-stupefaction with astral influences for some time. Stupid. Yes. Self-deception. Because in trying to deceive others, we will deceive ourselves. So what he says is, understand that every item you do in your daily routine should be utilized for your spiritual practice. Whatever benefit you get in life is an implement or instrument for your practice. If you get $10,000 suddenly unexpected, try to understand the better use of that money, how to enhance your practice, how to increase your consciousness, to discover how best you can utilize the money. Similarly, your energy, similarly your time, and the space in your house and office. Whatever wealth you have, you will be able to make an implement of your practice. If you make something very tasty to eat, understand the pleasurability of the taste can be utilized for your spiritualness. That is what is called dedicating everything to the Lord. Do everything with a spirit of dedication. Believe that it is a step which can be utilized for your betterment by utilizing it for the betterment of others. That is what is called tapas. So, have the same aim in doing everything. Today, your departments of life may appear different from one another, but tomorrow you will understand that all of them are one counterparts of one existence. Your life in the profession and office, your life in the domestic circle, your life in the friends circle, they may appear as three different departments not having anything in common. But when you begin yoga practice, you will understand all the three are parts of your life. You will know the oneness of your activity. That awareness is called tapas. It is wrongly translated as penance or penitence. And the second thing he advises us is, there are three types of the austerity of life. The one is mental, the second is vocal. The third is physical. Mental tapas or mental austerity is thinking about others only in progressive terms. If someone is good, rejoice in his goodness. If someone is bad, sincerely desire that he should become better day by day. That is what is called mental austerity. Think only something good, something positive, that everything should be useful only to someone. Let there be no occasion when you feel objectionable about anyone, because there is no necessity for you, because your thinking is in your own hands. Nobody need help you in your thinking. Nobody need contribute his virtues for your good thinking. People may be having many bad traits. They may be speaking many things bad, remarking very badly about you. But your thinking is with you, not with them. That is what is called mental austerity. The second is vocal austerity. Practice speech in such a way that your speech encourages others into goodness and gives some useful information about anything. And hope, it induces hope in others. So, use your speech as a good weapon. Gradually eliminate what is insulting to others. Let others try to insult you, but it is your mind that gets insulted. So, be sweet in your mind, because others are not judges of your goodness or badness. Always you are the better judge of yourself. You know yourself better. Therefore, don't give more value to others' opinions than your own opinion about you. So, let others speak many things bad about you. You need not speak bad of anyone, because a retaliation may give you temporary cruel pleasure. Retaliation, that is retaliation. Retaliation, that is one bad word as a reply to another one bad word, or if one does something wrong, if you do something wrong to hit him, that is retaliation. A retort, to pay him back in bad terms. Yes, it may give a cruel pleasure temporarily, but at the same time it gives you also suffering and pain. If you think of a person who harmed you in the night, your sleep is affected and the other person is in no way affected. Remember that you are the loser while you are retaliating. You are losing your mental balance, and your hypertension is going up, and you are losing your sleep, and you are on your nerves. So, you have no necessity to retaliate. Let him rejoice in his own paradise. You need not tackle him once again. The world is too big. He has his own way of living and you have your own way of living. That is what is called vocal tapas, vocal austerity. On the physical plane, you have the austerity. Whatever work you do on the physical plane, See if it is useful to someone or yourself. See if it causes some betterment of some person or some society or a group of persons. If it is useful, do it. If it is not useful to anyone, don't do it. For example, we go on commenting about persons for hours together sometimes. 10 people we sit down and make humorous remarks and comments about the world at large. At the end of 2 hours or 3 hours, if you calculate the benefit of what we have spoken for 3 hours, you will find zero. Much energy has been wasted, much vocabulary has been wasted, much voice wasted, and much laughter escaped from our throats. No use. So, the yoga practitioner minimizes these things gradually. If Michel says that somebody has eaten a banana and thrown it on the platform of Brussels, and another person stepped up on it and fell back, on listening which Krishnamacharya says, laughing like that, and then yes, and then a third person says, oh, is it? Tell me, repeat once again. He fell down. Really fell down. A third person says, what it is really? Really? A fourth person, oh, foolish fellow. A total of 3 minutes burnt and wasted. Not only time, but also span, which is valuable and which can never be replaced by any doctor. This is what the practitioner understands by physical austerity. But understand that it is not a sin to be pleasant and humorous and happy. Austerity does not mean you should grow dried up without any feelings. Be happy and make others happy. Be humorous, but let your humor create happiness in others. Be pleasant, and your pleasant attitude, let it create hope in others. Let others forget about their difficulties, at least for the moment. That is what is intended. Now, after speaking of this austerity, he gives us the next step, that is called Swadhyaya. The first is called Tapas, the second is called Swadhyaya. That means the habit of reading a scripture daily. Let it be 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute. Let it be one paragraph or one sentence. Make it a habit to read from a scripture daily and try to understand its significance and import. This is because these scriptures speak us about the goal of yoga, and also they contain the science of the human being and the art of human living. Two subjects which cannot be learnt from any university existing in the 20th century, because the universities are still primitive and the old Stone Age enough not to reach this level. Even in the most advanced and scientific nations and countries, the universities are too backward and too primitive about these two subjects. The present evolution of any university never permits the university to teach about the science of the human being and the art of human living. It may take at least one more century for the university fellows to think of such things. But we have the universal university where there are professors who are the authors of the Gospels and the Scriptures. And we have the syllabus which we call the Scriptures of the world. They are too advanced in scientific and artistic subjects. In the 20th century, no scientist or science professor can reach the levels of explaining us about Scriptures. So, it is the fundamental duty of a spiritual student to make it a habit to read from a scripture daily and try to understand the import. Better still, to read it out to some people who are ready to listen to it. Or if some people who are experts are reading it out, go and make an attendance. This is the second compulsory item to be practiced. The third is called the total surrender, which described previously. That is,